Welcome to the Short Term Show, the show about short-term rentals and long-term wealth, with real property owners hosting real properties who are crushing it in the vacation and short-term rental space. And here's your host, Avery Carl.
Sell with the Short-Term Shop. Are you looking to sell your short-term rental or even 1031 into a different property? Our team of realtors will work hard to get you the most for your investment. We are experts in our field and would love to earn your business. When it's time to sell, call the shop. TheShortTermShop.com. That's TheShortTermShop.com. Brokered by EXP.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Short Term Show. I have a really exciting guest today. Very heavy hitter in the industry. I have Paul Waldschmidt, the CEO and co-founder of OwnerRez. So I know a lot of you guys out there are OwnerRez users, or maybe you've at least heard of it if you're not an OwnerRez user. So I have the man here to answer all of our questions about OwnerRez. How's it going, Paul? Thanks for coming on.
Really good. And it's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So for those who may not be familiar, will you just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about OwnerRez?
Yeah. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of OwnerRez, and we go back a ways. I think we're viewed kind of as new to the industry by some people, or at least some of the larger PMs and groups out there that have been around pre-Verbo days. But we've been around for smaller hosts, smaller operators, or what we like to call starter PMs, since 2009, 2010. So pre-Airbnb, back when Verbo was even pre-HomeAway during those days. So we've been around and didn't really create a lot of traction for a while. And then we kind of started blowing up in about 2017, 2018. And we still skew mostly toward the smaller side of the market. So we have kind of a long tail. A lot of our hosts and operators and starter PMs really still make up a lot of who we are. That's where the name comes from. Also, OwnerRez. So instead of focusing on the PM side of the market, we kind of focused on the homeowner side of the market, kind of in keeping with kind of what Airbnb also foresaw back in the day. So yeah, and then since that time, we've expanded quite a bit, and we have a lot more medium, larger PMs as well. But we are a PMS product channel manager, and we have 7 or 8 verticals that cover kind of the normal things that you need when you're managing short-term rentals.
All right. So what made you guys decide to start this company back then? Like, there's been a lot of companies to jump on board here in the past 3 or 4 years, but you guys were, I think, to the opposite of the point you made earlier, one of the earlier ones in terms of what the market is like now with Airbnb and lots of self-managers. So what was the vision there back then?
Yeah, so it's not unlike some other stories. Chris is my co-founder, and he's the CTO. So we had our own rental portfolio back in the day. And again, this is back years before Airbnb was known about, or what was ever started. Verbo, you had kind of the classified listing type thing. And so we wanted to invest. And so we had a small portfolio, and we turned it over to a local PM. We thought, we could do a better job than the PM after we saw the results. Kind of wanted a little bit more personal experience. So we created that. And then, being software engineers, we thought, well, we could manage this better. And our vision was kind of what you see with channel management today. We knew that we didn't have that term for it, but we knew that sites like Airbnb and Verbo were going to start exploding. And the way that you really tackle that is by, kind of being able to distribute out to the Expedias and the travel websites of the world. So we started doing that in little ways, just kind of for ourselves. And for a long time, that it was good enough, just kind of managing and using our own kind of thrown together software solution. We had our own credit card processing, and we actually did quite a bit of work, mostly for ourselves and our friends. And then, kind of one thing led to another, and then Airbnb came along, and we started seeing just how much the industry was exploding. And that's when we decided to really kind of fund it and get behind it and use, instead of making this just something that helped our own rentals, kind of make this the priority, make this the business. And so we've tried to really kind of keep the same approach that we had back in the beginning, which was to, empower our users the way we would empower ourselves. So there's a term in the software industry called dog fooding. It basically means, in software, you should eat your own dog food. You should know whether it's good. You should experience it every day. So we kind of take that dog fooding approach, and we've just continued it as we've gotten bigger.
It is a really cool story. And I do think like an early adopter level, because like I said, a lot of people have jumped on in the past 4 or 5 years. So in terms of the few bigger property management software companies, a lot of them have a very clear like strength, one thing that they do really, really well. So you guys, I think kind of, in my opinion, have two, and maybe you can fill in some gaps here for me, in the fact that anything you could possibly ever want to do with the short-term rental listing, like you guys do. A lot of the questions that I see when people are like, hey, what property management software does this? OwnerRez is almost always mentioned as being able to do things. But the other big one that I think is really important, that again has really just gotten more important to users in the past probably 2 years, is direct booking. So can you tell us a little bit about the direct booking functionality?
Yeah, and thank you for that. It's sometimes I get questions like this. It's hard to know what area to talk about, because we do have 7 or 8 what we call verticals internally. For instance, channel management is a vertical. Hosted website, WordPress type stuff for direct bookings is another vertical. So we have like 8 of these verticals, and we try and invest and cover all of them without having a lot of sprawl and scope creep in the product. So we do, I think, a number of them really, really well. I think channel management, I think speed is an area we do really, really well generally across the system. Our logging and how we look at the product from an engineering standpoint. And that really plays into the direct booking website side for sure. I think one of the complaints that people have with their website, if it was built by a local website designer or if it was built by another PMS product out there that added websites, is that they're kind of stapled on and they might have kind of a glossy look, but they don't perform very well. They're not designed for the fundamental things websites need to do well, no matter what industry you're in. Things like SEO, being able to be fast, be a good experience for users. So we kind of focused and concentrated on that, and allowing people to spin up a site that, while it does rely on kind of a templated look and feel, because it is designed to serve thousands of people, giving them options to customize it, but continuing to be fast, be secure, SSL, SEO, have all the things that good websites should have. And that's taken a lot of work, because being a website builder is kind of its own game. It's its own whole thing. But I think the experience of what people can do, what our users can do with those websites is really paid off. And now we have thousands and thousands of them for our users. We have thousands of our users, I should say, that they're using them. So speaking to the book direct side of that, it's kind of interesting. You get people who go, well, I don't really, my calendar does really well on Airbnb or with Vrbo or whatever whatever their primary channel or traffic creator has been previous to a website. So do I really need to maintain it? And what we found is it's once people set that up and really pursue creating a brand, a logo, their name, their, all the little aspects of it, their color palette, how they're going to look and feel when someone transitions from Airbnb over to being managed by them, is that they really see the value in that and then really want to hang on to that into the future. Even if they get 10 Airbnb bookings for every one direct booking, or maybe more, 20 or 30 Airbnb bookings for every one direct, the ability to have kind of a home area, home camp for their brand, and say, hey, I'm not just so-and-so who's a super host on Airbnb, but I am Acme Beach Vacation Rentals with a logo, and here's my team and everything. It kind of empowers them, I think. I think it kind of fuels and drives their business, even if they don't upfront get, a lot of direct bookings right away.
Yeah. And I think it is really important. And I've been in that camp before of like, I'm just going to roll with Airbnb and Vrbo. It's doing fine for me right now. But I do think like, yeah, you're probably not ever going to compete SEO wise with the big OTAs, but that's not the point of having a direct booking website. That branding is very important. And even just the ability, even if you are getting one direct booking for every 10, 20, 30 Airbnb bookings, that can help fill in the calendar, just 10 booking. Let's say you got 10 direct bookings a year, that can really help fill some things in. So, and you are a little more in control of that than like with last year or at the beginning of the year, spring-ish, when Airbnb made all these changes to their algorithms and everybody's like, oh my God, I'm not getting bookings anymore. And you can't really fully control that, but having a basis of at least some direct bookings can really help to offset things like that are outside of our control with the big OTAs.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is the polish, the control. You get people coming back to you as well when they start to see that you're your own shop and they can book directly with you. So it's easy to set up, right? So it's not like it's this great cumbersome thing to create a logo and kind of think about what makes you unique to your area. I think people want to connect to a lot of the vacation rental market kind of naturally wants to connect. So maybe it's just our experience. We have a lot of, like I said, smaller operators, starter PMs, mom and pops, but the net booking value of those groups and the repeat ratio for those groups, I think, is very, very high. So definitely get your website, get your brand going, and take a couple of steps, and you don't have to rush into it like crazy and think that it's going to replace Airbnb, but definitely get it up and going at the same time.
I totally agree with that. And do you have any other best practices as somebody who's kind of up here high level looking at what a lot of people's direct booking websites look like and perform like? Are there any best practices across types of short-term rental managers or markets or anything like that you can share?
There's a number. I mean, in the website area, generate content, but understand that it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, there's the old school blog side of it where, we were talking about things. And I think people rush into that from the standpoint of, I'm going to go do a blog, I'm going to do content, I'm going to do social media. And then, that should do this big thing. And if it doesn't do this big thing for me, and then I get tired of it and I move on. But it's really a marathon. It's really a long haul, long roadmap that you're doing there. So, set a reminder for yourself every week or month to look for content in your area, things that are unique, not copy paste from other places, but things that are unique that there's a triathlon that goes through your mountain or your town. There's a special thing on the beach near you. Find those things, talk to local people, just tuck them away. It doesn't need to be a lot, but as you start to do that over time, your SEO starts to go up. People start to follow you. You start to get, a little bit more. You start to get 10% more, 15% more. And over time, you start to really grow your business and whatever your goal is, whether it's just increasing occupancy or whether you're trying to build to a point where you're going to sell to a larger operator in your area. Everyone has different goals. So whatever it is, you kind of work on the business itself over time. And one of those is look for ways where you can connect with local people in your area and generate small amounts of content as you go. It seems like kind of a small, obvious thing, but it really, the mindset is where it's at, that you're not doing something all right now that's going to work and replace Airbnb or create some big giant spike in the business. It's that you're, kind of slowly building a lot of different aspects of the business as you go. And then all of a sudden you look back after a year or two and it's like, wow, I'm getting 30, 40% direct bookings, maybe where I was getting none. I do have a connection with people in my area. I've met new cleaning staff. I've, been able to kind of increase my business or find new owners if I'm managing for others. You really start to get gains in a lot of places where you didn't realize you were going to.
And I think that's almost a really good strategy just or mindset for real estate investing as a whole, whether it's short-term rentals, long-term rentals, multifamily, is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so the same way that I think people think, oh, if I just generate a bunch of content about my house really quick, that I'm going to get all these crazy bookings, they think the same thing, and due in large part to influencers or people who don't necessarily need to be influencing, but are. They think, oh, well, I'm going to go buy 2 short-term rentals and slap them up on Airbnb and quit my job, and I'm going to be rich and I'm going to live the rest of my life without having to work. And everything worth doing is a marathon. So I think that's a really, really good piece of advice also.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think maybe you're right too about the influencer, what that's done to change people's perspectives. And if you can get to that level, that where you can flip a switch and say something and it drives tons and tons of traffic, that's great. But that's as we know, that's pretty rare as well.
Yeah, that's not real life in most cases.
Right.
So let's talk about integrations really quick, because there's a lot of choice out there in terms of other ancillary apps and tools that you can use to plug into your property management software. So what would you say are the most important integrations that OwnerRez has the capabilities for?
Yeah, it's kind of different for each person. I mean, the kind of the default one, obviously, for everyone are channel integrations. I mean, that's kind of, a long time ago, we turned off channel management from our pricing system, or I should say, we took channel management out of our pricing system and made it default for everyone. There's no percent of revenue. There's nothing. It's just built in. As soon as you land on our system, you have direct, wide open access to Vrbo, Booking, Air, Trip, all the major channels. So leaving that one aside, because obviously we need traffic and most everyone needs traffic from the channels, it kind of depends on what you're doing. If you have a good pricing structure already in mind because you've been operating for 10 or 15, 20 years, then maybe you don't need dynamic pricing. But the pricing engines are pretty good. And there's some real cost-effective ones out there. Some of them are not so cost-effective, but pricing is an area where you need to make sure you're getting that right. When people pull up Airbnb, Vrbo, they use an average of 7 filters. The average guest, traveler, when they're going on these OTAs, that's what we're told by our OTA partners. So obviously there's some major ones like arrival date, departure date, right? And guest size. I need to know when I'm going and how many people are going and that kind of thing. But, pricing is right there, whether or not they filter for pricing or whether or not they just look and see which ones are cheapest, looking at the results. Having your pricing game down is huge. And it's not one thing. Obviously you can go look at the webinars that we've done with some of our pricing partners like Price Labs and Wheelhouse recently and the others. But it has to change. Your pricing has to know what's coming up and short-term, long-term, all the aspects that they do. And again, you can use some built-in tools. Like we have quite a bit we have some pricing options that we have built in, but that requires that you really know your market well, that you're adjusting constantly, not just like, last minute price drops, but other things going on for holidays and whatnot. So pricing kind of stands out because if you don't get your pricing right, you're either not going to get booked or you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. So that's a big one. I think fulfillment, actually, cleaning fulfillment and maintenance is one that has stood out more and more over the years. Your reputation is everything, of course, right? Getting good reviews and leaving good reviews is giant. You should be using tools. We have this built in, but it's kind of an integration with like Airbnb and Vrbo to auto review. Using different templates so that you're driving your guests to say something back, to leave a review of their own. That's a pretty big thing. I've seen where our users have gone from dropping below Superhost because they had a 4.7, 4.6. They weren't getting enough 5 stars. People were leaving. They'd get 1 or 2 5 stars, but then someone would leave a 3 or 2 and it would screw up their ratio, to using auto reviews to bring themselves back to a Superhost. Because auto reviews say, if a booking's not flagged or a guest isn't flagged as being negative, auto review will automatically, a few days after departure, use a template to say, great guest, would book again, great job. And then, of course, the channel reaches out to the guest and says, hey, a host left a review for you. Would you like to review so that you can see what they said? So it kind of drives that kind of feedback. And we've seen where that type of tool has actually brought some good hosts who had dropped below Superhost or Premier, I think it's called Premier Partner on Verbo, back above that level because they have a lot more people leaving fives. That's not necessarily integration, but it's a good tool to use. The reviews, and as you work on your reputation, as I was saying a second ago, the cleaning obviously is a very important part of that. And it depends on your market, it depends on your team, what you have configured already. But we've seen where some of the cleaning tools have helped quite a bit too. Creating checklists, creating expectations, so that your housekeepers, who are all good people and have good intentions, but they know kind of what you expect. And maybe there's something there to nudge them to do something in the tool that they weren't doing before, like take a picture of the hot tub and just, make sure that things are set a certain way. So, we can go on, but those are kind of the ones that stand out in my mind around pricing, around reputation, that you really got to get those right, or there can be long-term consequences.
Hey guys, hope you are enjoying this week's episode of the Short Term Show. We are loving it. We are loving interviewing all these guests for you guys, and we hope you're getting a lot of value out of it. And we really love you guys. We love you so much that we have created a community just for you. We have a Facebook group specifically for short-term rental investors, and there are tons of great posts every day sharing best practices, learning new things from other short-term rental investors, and we would love to see you over there. The name of the group is the same name as my book, Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. Head over and join the conversation. We look forward to seeing you over there. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content of our podcast, but you have additional short-term rental questions, we host a weekly live question session that you guys can join for free. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And if you head over to strquestions.com, you can sign up. So not only am I the host of this show, but I also own and manage my own properties, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about short-term rental investing. So please join us anytime for a free weekly live Q&A on Zoom. Sign up at strquestions.com. Pricing 100%. And I remember when we, at the beginning in 2015, 16, we were manually pricing in our market. And when it kind of became more mainstream to use pricing tools, we were like, I don't know about this. I guess I'll try it. And we tried Price Labs, and our income went up 20% because there's just so many things that you kind of can't know without that help. So dynamic pricing is just so important, I think.
Yeah, for sure. The other one I think maybe is messaging. I mean, there's so many good ones, but like messaging integrations, we have a lot of messaging tools built in. So you can use messaging integrations to do a little bit more. You can use whatever software you're using, you can use the tools that are built in. But, communication's a big thing. I think all of this is, leading back to reputation and reviews. But, being transparent, being, communicating well, the modern traveler really expects so much. And so having tools that kind of fill that stuff in and personalize things for you, I mean, it's huge, right? I mean, if you're not doing it now, you should be. And if you are doing it, double check what needs to be kind of freshened up and changed a little bit.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And we kind of take the approach of making sure all questions that they could possibly think of asking are answered before they can even ask them. And I mean, along the lines of communication and messaging kind of leads into my next question, which is about AI. So what do you think the future of vacation rentals looks like with AI? I know it's kind of being integrated with messaging at the moment, but what do you think that looks like going even further moving forward?
Yeah, so I remember probably, I'm trying to think now. Well, this is back in like 2013 or 14, so maybe 10 years ago. I talked about the rental portfolio that we started before that led to the software, and then the software became more important. So that rental portfolio is still around and still very much alive and thriving. It's a small company called ShenRent. My wife actually manages it, and there's about 35 properties, maybe more, maybe 37, 38. And so one of the things we wanted to do a long time ago, back when it was at like 10, 12, is find a virtual receptionist, right? Find someone who could answer the phone after hours or on the weekends just to help. answer questions. And we tried one of the vendors that was out there, and they, you had your own phone number and they picked up the phone, but they didn't really help that much. Right? I mean, it was mostly like taking messages and then they'd relay messages to us. So, that wasn't, and that company ended up, getting larger and just hiring front desk and hiring maintenance and that kind of thing. So I think AI has the potential, among other things, I think it has the potential to do the virtual receptionist thing really, really well. Because obviously you're talking about messaging. So it could write, GPT could write a message back. It could learn and train from your website, from your information, what your policies are and what the Wi-Fi code is and all that kind of stuff. But it could also, I think, be a lot more dynamic, and it could let people know availability, pricing. It could learn quite possibly when and how you negotiate discounts. It could see what you do in terms of repeat guests. It could relay all that information, obviously from the standpoint that this is a virtual response system and, it would have to get approval. But I think it could alleviate, particularly in the small side of the market, the starter PMs, homeowners, single operators. It could really help share information in a human, human readable or speakable way, either during the day when those operators are doing something else, or in the night, weekend time, holiday periods when people are gone. And I think you could do it pretty, we've seen what GPT has done lately and how good it's been, how good it's gotten. I think you could really start to see kind of that take over a little bit of the staff role. So, I know at the moment it's kind of like, well, we've all interacted with Amazon's virtual chat system, right? And it can answer certain questions like, yes, I need to do a return. So I start a return. And that only goes so far. But I think as it builds over time, you're going to see it get pretty good, maybe to the point of even taking bookings and changing bookings, things like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Just kind of taking over the stuff that you can, basically the stuff that you can teach to VAs right now with just your standard operating procedures. If it can learn that, it can definitely fill in some gaps for you on off times for sure.
Right.
Another hot topic that could be major, or it could be absolutely nothing, is what do you think about the Google vacation rental idea? Or I guess it's not an idea anymore. It's happening, but I could go either way on it. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, I don't know how long we have in this segment here, but
we can go as long as you want.
We could probably go until Friday. We've been involved in integrating with Google VR since January of this year. It is currently almost September. We've had a full time and a half person working on it since then, engineer plus part of product team and testing, QA. So the concern, speaking just very frankly here, is that Google starts a lot of good ideas and then dumps them. So this has been the case for a long time. They come out with really cool stuff. People see it, go, wow, this is really cool. And it's at their scale. Imagine what this could do. I remember Google Voice back in the day. And they haven't dumped Google Voice. It kind of morphed into other things. But whether they will fund it and push it, whether it will stick around as part of their travel system or what they call hotel center under the covers, it very much remains to be seen. And for people like us who invest in this and actually do hands-on, risk deep, engineering, we're very dialed into it. And we're very curious. And, there is a team there that we talk to. There are, real people on that side that are working with us to integrate it. But, that's the problem with Google VR in a nutshell, is what is their real long-term plan? Is someone on that side really going to push it? Google, if you look back, 20 years, 30 years, things don't interest them unless they are in the billions, right? So, Gmail, Google Maps, all the products they've stuck by are, things that, billions of people use. So a small SaaS company like ours, if we have 1 million users, that's phenomenal. If we have 10,000, that's really even good. Google doesn't tend to care about things unless they are hundreds of millions or billions of people using them. So unless it's like world changing. So the concern with, again, the Google travel system is it something that is moving the needle enough for Google that they're going to keep it around? Because you're going to do work getting your properties on there. You're going to do work. Actually, our users won't do that much work because it's all their content's in place. They're going to hit a button, and they are now. We're in a private beta. We have, I think, 50 or 60 accounts that are plugged in and dialed in, and we're going to be going live probably to everyone in the next, I don't know, I'd say month, maybe month and a half, depending on how the current testing group goes. We have listings out there you can find in Google and click through. So if they do keep it around, if they do push it, if it does become a prominent thing, it could be huge. There are very few channels that come online that make really any difference when it comes to dethroning the Airbnbs, the Verbos in a particular area. Kissimmee, Gatlinburg, New York, or wherever you're at, it's very hard to punch through unless you have a really good local regional listing site that's been there for like 25 years. So Google has the unique advantage of being so large. And when people are searching for a hotel, seeing, that vacation rental tab and flipping their hotel search to vacation rentals and then seeing the results and then actually clicking through, driving direct booking traffic to your website, which is how it works, that could be, pretty game changing. It's also free, at least at the moment. So there's no percent or anything. It's, it hooks through a hotel ad account in the background that we maintain as a PMS and channel manager, but the results flow right to the user's direct booking website. So it's free. Google's the biggest website or online website product and service company on the planet. It could be game changing, but will it stick around? Will anyone care in a year or two? Or are they going to turn it off? That's where we're at with it.
Yeah. There's a few things that, like Google Lens, I think it was like supposed to be so huge probably 10 years ago. And then I never heard anything else about it.
Oh, there's hundreds. I mean, you could make entire spreadsheets full of products. I mean, they've started and stopped like 3 or 4 different social media projects over the years. Even the stuff they've continued, Google Docs came from previous things like Google Wave. So there are just so many products over the years that they've started and stopped, so many lab things that they've done. And if they keep it going and it stays there and it's very relevant, and as people search over time and get more used to Google travel results, then as they're booking a flight and they're looking at hotels and they see those vacation rentals sitting there right next to them, it has the potential to be really, really big. But time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, it will. And speaking of time, so we're getting to the end of the show where I've got 3 questions that I ask everybody who comes on. But first, I wanted to ask you, what are you most excited about that's on the horizon for OwnerRez?
I think probably bringing together the loose pieces, or in the software world, what we call fragmentation, bringing together those loose pieces in a couple of our verticals. So we're right on the edge of really seeing some large updates for our PM vertical, what you might think of as trust accounting, things like that. The big overhaul that's been in the works for like a year and a half. Just clean up things we've seen. Same thing with unified inbox. Or unified inbox concept is coming together. There's some design elements that we're overhauling to change how our design looks. So I think, it's not really like one big new feature, but just that we're working on really kind of finally tying up and overhauling or at least releasing kind of a single overhaul of a couple of different verticals. I think that we're really excited about that.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing that stuff too. All right. So last few questions. First, what advice would you give 20-year-old Paul?
Figure out pricing early. I'm not talking about vacation rental pricing, but product pricing.
Gotcha.
So don't underestimate how much your customers value what you do and price accordingly. So don't look to give things away. Don't look to convert people through it's free or it's cheap or things like that. But focus on where the value is, price accordingly, and then build off of that, which is kind of a general business, general business advice to anyone in business.
Great advice. And second question, what advice would you give a new short-term rental investor who's looking to get started today? It's a real wacky time in the real estate cycle, a little bit of a weird time in the short-term rental in general cycle. What would your advice be?
I would tell them that you make all of your money up front when you buy. So I think one of the big problems that people have in the short-term industry is they go, well, the Airbnb money, the rental money is good. This house may be overpriced, but it's in a great area. I'm going to maybe overpriced. I'm going to overpay for it, but I'll make it up long term. I've seen more often than not where you don't, where you get into trouble down the road. The market slows, your mortgage interest rate changes, something happens, you lose interest. It's hard to unload later. Buy low, even though you think, well, this is a great opportunity and this place is right on the lake and it looks like this. There's more places. Keep looking, buy low, because you make your money long-term based largely on what you buy up front.
That makes a lot of sense. So like, are you saying buy properties that maybe you can add value to, like maybe a big 3-bedroom that you could add that 4th bedroom to be that income driver, but you're also adding equity to the house?
And in both ways. So you could look for a renovation project. You could look for deals where you're putting sweat equity into. Those are good. I've had some success with that for sure. But just in general, don't think that whatever you're buying, and sometimes the renovation projects are worse because you're buying them and you have to renovate it, but you think, I'll make the money back later. Keep looking for deals. Keep looking for places where, someone needs to move quickly, where, you take your time and know that you're getting a good deal, which is hard with the market the way it is. But right now it's really hard actually. But, 5-6 years ago, this advice would have been a little easier. But, Pete, whether it's a turnkey and ready to go, or whether it's going to be a sweat equity project, push to get a lower, cheaper, better deal up front. Don't assume that because you have a certain amount of cash flow per month, that's just going to cover any mistakes you made buying too high. More often than not, it tends not to. If you have a portfolio of 4 or 5 and you have one that way, that might be fine because the other ones cover it. But you really, just be selective, be skeptical, take your time to make sure you're getting a good deal value-wise on the real estate you buy up front.
I think that's really good advice. And we're actually kind of coming into a market. We're not quite there yet because right now we have the lowest inventory of, I think, the past maybe 20 years. I think we have even lower inventory for sale than there was right at the 2008 time. So, but I think that's about to change. I know we've seen that in our business. We've taken more listings in the past 2 weeks than we have in the past 3 or 4 months. So I think more inventory is coming online, which will give you the ability to be able to do what you just said and really get those deals. And you can do it now because people are starting to sell off that maybe didn't need to be in the business to begin with, but got in because everybody else was 2 years ago. So I think we're really coming into a time in the real estate cycle where you can really take that advice and put it to good use.
Yeah, that's just it. You can find it. You can also look for examples. There's an elderly couple that lives down the road who has a great little spot. They're looking to move. They've owned the place. They're willing to do seller financing or owner financing, so you can get a 10 to 15 year rate that's pretty cheap. So you're gonna have your cash flow in that, and that way will also be lower. Look for it's kind of like everything else in life, right? I mean, take the time and don't force your way into the business or the market. Don't think that I need to be Airbnb rich, and so I just need to buy a bunch of great places up front and I'll find a bank that'll loan me the money and everything else. It doesn't work. Look for value. So
also great advice. I totally agree with that. And this one is a much easier question. What's your favorite book that's impacted your mindset?
Ooh, that's actually a hard question. Probably Rework by the 37 Signals guys. Okay. Very easy read, but it talks a lot about, it's either that or about creating happiness. The book by Tony Hsieh, unfortunately passed away. The guy who created Zappos. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why does that sound weird? I think it's Zappos.
That was
Yeah, but that's been very integral to our business philosophy, Chris and mine, creating happiness. Don't get caught up in how much does this customer cost to support. Just create happiness. It's its own reward. It spreads itself so well when you do that. But the rework guys too. So unfortunately, I know you want one. It'd be one of those two. But rework is really, really good. It's about rethinking business. A lot about value, knowing what you really need and what you don't. If you're a bootstrapped owner, meaning you don't have outside investors like Chris and I, and you've set it up on your own, talks a lot about how to pursue profitability, how to hire, and there's a lot of old school, good fundamental principles in both those books.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. If all of our listeners want to learn more about OwnerRez or maybe follow you or the company on social media, where can they do that?
Yep, in all the places. So OwnerRez.com. And we're pretty active there. Our blog is very active there in terms of product updates and user profiles. We try and create really meaningful content. So we don't just throw stuff up there, but it's very active. And then we're very active, of course, on LinkedIn, Facebook. So just look up OwnerRez. That's owner like it sounds, and then REZ, Rez, and we're in all those places.
All right. Well, again, thanks so much, Paul, for taking time out of your day to come on our show, and we hope to have you back soon.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to coming back.